So all of the movement in and out of that space will be from an exterior door. There will not be any access to that space during that work.
So it's confined to that area?
Yes, it is. So you're not going to be walking through the corridors. There'll be no staff or students entering that space because the only access is through the exterior door. Secondly, one might ask, well, why are we doing this? Why couldn't we have finished it prior to the onset of school? It's just not possible. You cannot do a project like this in 2 months. The money's not appropriated until July 1st, given how town meeting appropriates, and there's no way you can do a project of this nature in 2 months. There are so many waiting periods and state involvement periods that extend the project. And just to reinforce another point Wayne made, we've done a half dozen asbestos-related projects while students were in the buildings just in the last 5 years alone. So this
No, it doesn't sound like there's any interference with the operation of school, and there's no interference with the potential heating issues that we might have in October, November, so I don't see a problem.
Is it a concrete wall between the boiler room and the
cinder block wall there? Yes.
Good, Cliff?
an issue?
Are we replacing 2 boilers with 3? So we have an extra feature. We don't have the variable speed drives, but we do have an increment, so you can run one smaller boiler.
The beauty of condensing boilers, there's 3, they're fairly small. One starts, and depending on the load, the second will start, and depending on the load, the third might start. But they modulate, and here again, there's a tremendous savings right there.
Right.
Right now, we fire a boiler, and it just runs flat out.
Right.
Just if you can modulate, they're not, well, they are variable drives to a certain extent, because you have 3, and if it's extremely cold, they all might run. They may not, but we have to have that possibility. But
I sort of picked up on that, and that in itself is an energy efficiency factor, because you're not running a big unit, you're running a smaller unit, and then another increment, and then another increment. If you really, if we've got the 15 below, you might want to.
I just, now those questions about variable drives and all that, not that I need to put it to bed, but when we started the Hood project, which has been running for 10 years, and we've been consuming a lot of electricity, that is a fairly rapid payback. That 30 horsepower motors, that was designed in 1999, long before energy efficient was a huge consideration.
Mm-hmm.
The 30 horsepower motors, but the payback is probably 9 months or $25,000. If we didn't put variable drives at all at the little school, with 3 condensing boilers, I'm not sure what the payback is exactly. I can find it out, but it's a short period of time compared to what we have now. And by adding variable drives at some point, it'll increase our payback. I think it's a good due diligent decision on the school department's part to, short of replacing 1 boiler, which is what the initial thought process was. We got a bad one, put in a new one, just like we did here.
Mm-hmm.
We had a bad boiler here, we put in a new one. That's all we did. Over there, we're thinking a little out of the box because it's not going, that school's not going anywhere. Those boilers will be good for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Probably 40 to 50 years.
You'll be almost ready to retire, Wayne. when
I'm
those
just
go.
about ready to retire.
Those go.
I had a question for you. What about the load balancing piece? What happens if one of the boilers fail during that time period? Say there's 3 that are running, that are heating the school in the middle of the winter, and 1 fails. What happens at that point?
1 will carry the school.
1 will carry the school. So at what point does 2 and 3 then kick in?
If it's 40 to 60 below zero for a week,
Okay,
then we
so
get all 3 running.
are you saying 2 and 3 are generally backups?
Yeah.
Okay.
All of our schools now have 2 boilers, and generally we don't need to. But we have to have 2 because if one fails or goes down, we have to have a backup. We have backup boiler rooms. We have backup boilers. We have backup pumps. Everything is duplicated here. So if something fails, and it has, and I've come in and there's no heat, but we start the other one, or it starts on its own. So my motivation is so it's seamless.
Yeah.
We heat the school, no question, and that's, to me, this is a very energy efficient decision to put in condensing boilers. It just makes a lot of sense.
So what happens when it's like 90% on the first boiler, it'll kick in the second one, and it'll even the load between the two? Is that what happens?
I don't really have, I don't have a real good answer for that.
Yeah.
If this is at 100% load, or maybe it's at 70% load, the other one kicks on, but maybe it's only running at half speed.
Right.
And they're all, it's all computer controlled, and that, the beauty of that, like the batch energy management system, it's very efficient. It's very efficient. That's I don't know all the
Sure.
finite details at this point, but I don't really think I need to know. As long as they're efficient, we have a great engineer on this. We've used him several times. He really knows his stuff, and he hasn't steered me wrong yet. So,
Okay, Wayne, thank you very much.
okay. Anything else?
Appreciate it. Thanks. Nope, unless the committee has anything else for Wayne? No?
My
Thank you.
pleasure. Thank you very. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Okay, next item on the agenda
Okay.
is the 2011-2012 school committee goals. I think the superintendent has put together a draft. This is a reflection of what we talked about last week at our goal-setting workshop. And where do we want to go with this?
They're organized under 4 headings,
Mhm.
and you can see that you did accomplish an awful lot at your workshop.
I feel better now.
You established lots of objectives to accomplish. And so I did indicate, we don't have a collective bargaining goal on here,
We
which
should.
would fall under leadership and governance. As I was perusing this, and I also took a look at the document that was in your packet, Roles and Responsibilities. Michael had brought that to our attention earlier, in the spring last year. And within this document, there are also categories. So I matched those categories up
Yeah,
to the
that's
4
interesting.
major
Yeah.
categories. And that's what drew my attention to the notion of collective bargaining not being a goal.
And it should be, it
And
has to be.
it should be for this year. But you have every single other area under roles and responsibilities included on your document.
Okay.
On our website, right?
Any input on the process the other night at the workshop regarding the goals? Anybody want to add anything that possibly we could do a little differently, or add anything to the goals that we've established? Go ahead, Mel.
I think we got caught up too much in process and didn't focus on goals. That was my feeling, and I just didn't get a lot out of it. I think last year, Kathy's first year of setting goals with us, I think it was really good because we changed the way we've done it for like 10 years.
Right.
And then this year, I think we got bogged down in that self-evaluation thing, and I lost sight of goals versus us saying, well, why did I give a 2, and what does this category mean? And so we did come up with some goals, but I think, I just don't know if it,
I think it muddied the whole process,
Yeah.
honestly, because I don't see a lot of the stuff we did in the workshop in this.
Well,
Where
actually,
these are more concrete.
yeah, I'm looking at these and
What I
I'm
mean?
saying, wow, we did better than I thought we did.
I
well,
know.
but a lot of these we didn't talk about at the
Exactly,
workshop.
exactly.
They came from other places.
I agree. I think the self-evaluation process is a good thing. I
Yeah, I
think
do
it's
too.
fine. I do think it has to be tweaked and worked on a little bit, but I agree with both Mel and Mike that we got caught up way too much in trying to follow the process through the self-evaluation and the way we did that to determine what goals we had accomplished and what goals we needed to set
Right.
for the coming year. So looking at this, are we satisfied that what's reflected here, Kathy?
I'd just like to make a comment. Everything you see on the draft goals, these were from my notes that I took during the workshop. So you did talk about every single thing that's on this sheet, because all I did was transcribe and plug them in.
Yeah, I think somewhere during the course of the night, and again, I give you a lot of credit for coming up with that, because I was partially suicidal. I mean, I wasn't
I didn't go that far. I was more becoming narcoleptic at that point.
All right,
It
that's
wasn't-
it.
I'm sorry.
Well, you were engaged
I-
in your narcoleptic state.
I was.
Go ahead, Cliff. Cliff.
Our problem is that we're not a goals committee, we're a school committee. And if our whole job was goals, then this would be fine. But our job is schools, not goals. So we need to kind of get about the business of
Well,
the
again, I
school
think,
committee,
I
not
think what the
goals
superintendent has prepared here for the draft
Yeah.
goal categories isn't bad, actually.
So I'm gonna argue though that a lot of these aren't stated as goals.
Yeah,
They're
know,
not at all.
Right.
yeah, but I
So
think,
shouldn't they be
Their activity, their objectives.
Right.
So if we put these into an action plan, similar to what we reviewed when we got together, we had a goal statement at the top, and then we had all of these activities.
Let's see, even I would, like, for example,
On
the
the
first one says policy, engagement, systematic review, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
I would change that to say revise and update several sections of policy manual in a systematic review
and that would be a goal.
as a goal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm?
Yes.
So I just, like, just the wording in some of the areas, not a big deal. And then there were just some, like, under educational program, it says student support, and I really wasn't clear on what that meant.
We decided there'd be no goal in that area when
Okay.
we went through, that was taken right from the document.
Right, so if there's no goal, do we just take,
We can take it off.
okay.
I just wanted to show you that you hadn't developed a goal there.
And then, for example, under budget, some of the goals should be to continue to focus on finding additional funding sources that meet,
You have a whole separate set of budget goals that you typically take a
Right.
look at in late September. So we did not articulate budget goals at this workshop.
okay.
We're gonna do that in September at a regular meeting?
Yes, usually Carl brings the goals that
Okay.
had been completed the year before. I'd be happy to have another workshop if that's something that you would like.
Well, if we
No.
do, if we do, I think we wanna get right down to the nitty-gritty and have everybody basically contribute to what they would like to see set as a goal for the entire committee, and then the committee decide whether or not that's something that we should support.
I mean, I personally don't know if others want another workshop, that's fine, but I think, I mean, I was just gonna suggest, I wouldn't do it tonight, I could just
Do a
suggest a
rewrite.
lot of wording, not a rewrite, just a lot of
I would appreciate that, Mel, if you would
changes
like to do
in the
that.
wording.
Does anybody have in mind any goals for the coming year that don't fit anywhere in this, regardless of the language, that doesn't surface at all in the draft that Kathy's given us? Anything? Okay, so Mel, do you wanna take a crack at that
Yeah,
and take what we have here?
yeah, and if
Refine
anybody
it
has
into
any
a-
other ideas, send
Okay.
them to me, and then
Okay.
we can look at it at our next, and I'll send it to you, and then we can look at it at our next meeting.
Great. Are we looking to develop an action plan again with
I-
timelines?
I
or
think we could
not?
consider it, but I think if we can get the goals
Yes.
established first, then we
Yes.
can look at the action plan and how,
Okay.
yeah.
I guess the only question I have is, so I was looking under financial and asset management, and you just list budget, buildings and grounds. Do we have specific goals that should be going with those?
These were the categories, and as of the workshop, we had only identified something for secondary school building project and finance planning team. So again, we don't have to have a building and grounds goal, but that subcategory falls under financial and asset management.
But if
So
you want-
these were the subcategories.
If you wanna take a crack, Mel, again, at, framing that in a goal, in other words, so
I
obviously
don't know
that
if
we're
there,
gonna.
I don't know if
we're
there
gonna
are
s-
any, I
Well,
mean,
we're gonna establish a budget that will adequately fund
Yeah, I agree. It's
the
gotta be-
continuing, at least level services, or something be more imaginative of that, maybe. Buildings and grounds, I'm not sure that we wanna, what we're gonna come up with that. Obviously, the secondary school building project, to bring that to a vote and acceptance of the project,
the one other question I had for Kathy was under leadership and governance and strategic planning. We had talked at our meeting about how the strategic plan, which is really old now, and it really became a static document, and it wasn't anything that was, I won't say it wasn't implemented, but it became almost like a dead document. So when we talk about strategic planning, do we have to reference a strategic plan at all, or do we just talk about the vision, mission, and strategic goals?
Well, again, as I had mentioned, right now, I'm working with the leadership team, the Expanded Administrative Council. We've worked through the book Strategy in Action, which really involves a strategic planning process. But the first thing that we need to do is craft a vision. We have a mission for this district. We don't have a vision statement. So right now, the leadership team is taking a look at putting something together to bring to you for your review.
So our goal might be